Hello students, today we will study class 12 English literature from book Flamingo, chapter 4, The Rattrap. Rattrap is written by Swedish writer Selma Lagerlöf. Selma Lagerlöf was born in 1858 in Sweden. She published her first novel, Gösta Berling's Saga, at the age of 33. She was the first woman who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1909. Her debut novel, the first novel, Gösta Berling's Saga, broke away the naturalism and realism that was prevalent in that period. But her depictions, her stories, depict a realistic circumstances of people, their social lives, and in all her stories, there is a common theme, universal theme that runs through all of them, and that is a belief, a faith on the virtues of men, the moral nature, the moral and ethical values in human men, the essential goodness in human being that can be awakened if it is not very active, but it can be reawakened through understanding, compassion and love. So this story is set amidst the mines of Sweden, rich in iron ore, which figures large in the history and the legends of that country. Sweden is very rich in iron ores, and that is why all the different depictions of the stories is just surrounding him. So here in this about the lesson, you can see there is a homeless tramp, that the one who does not have any home and who does not have any ethical and moral integrity. So that person is called a tramp. So a tramp roams the street, picks pieces of wire lying here and there and turns them into a rat trap, mini or toy traps that are for catching rats. So besides selling them, his other means of survival are begging and petty thievery. Anything to keep body and soul together, because he has to live, he has to meet both his ends. So while roaming the street, a philosophical idea spontaneously came to his mind. He thought that the whole world, with its money, riches and attractions, is like a rat trap. The man, the poor rat. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became. But even after the apparent reality, so apparent, clear reality, it is obvious to us, there is a greater reality. And that reality is that miracles do not happen every day. We cannot see miracle happening every day. And that is why we lose faith. We lose faith in God. We lose faith in the human beings, the spiritual power inside the human beings. But miracles do happen. It was nothing short of a miracle that the tramp was able to come out of the rat trap into which he had fallen and found himself as Captain Von Star. So here, what is the main important points of the lesson? So the thing is the rat trap. During his wanderings, his philosophy came to his mind that this big beautiful world itself is a big rat trap, and man, a poor rat, caught in it because of the riches, attractions, greed. Then the temptations, man is tempted to fall into that trap. So normally this rat trap seller, he wanders in the street, and normally he never found any welcome at any place where he sought permissions to sleep for the night. One evening, the story was entirely different. It was the house of a lone retired craftsman. The man not only welcomed him, but also offered him supper, played cards with him, because he was treating him as a friend, because he was lonely and he was very happy to see a friend, a person who he wants to who welcome as a friend. So it was the gave him, and he also gave him tobacco to smoke, and even shared confidences with him, just like old friends talk n number of things when they meet. So the crofter lived by the earning of his cow. It was an extraordinary cow which gave milk throughout the year. The man lived on the income from the creamery where he sold the milk. Finding the tramp unbelieving, the crofter took out three 10-kroner notes from his shirt pocket to show the man. After that, he put back the money in the shirt pocket. Next morning, both men left home at the same time. But the tramp came back after a few minutes. He broke the window pane, took out the money from the hanging shirt, pocketed the money, hung back the shirt in its place, and disappeared. He has no compassion because his whole mind was basically in stealing those kroners, those rupees, those coins from the crofter. He did not even think that he was actually welcoming him. He was giving him supper, he was treating him as a friend, but he has no qualm of conscience here. Next morning, what happened? The action that had trapped the tramp into the rat trap. Since he had stolen the money and news was most likely to travel fast, the tramp could not walk through the thoroughfare. The main street he could not follow. He decided to leave the town through the forest. The forest was a labyrinth, very deep, dense forest. So the man lost his way and kept circling round in the forest. He lay down at last under a forest tree because he became very tired. He could not find the street. So it was a cold winter night. It was freezing cold. The sleepless, shivering man heard a hammering sound at a distance, understood it, and got up at once. Reached the iron works and lay down near the boiler with his face covered with a slouch hat. The iron works belonged to a prominent iron master, an ex-army officer. That night he came on a surprise check of the iron works as was his wont. He used to visit his iron works. He used to visit the place to check the iron works. So he looked at the sleeping tramp. He mistook for Captain Von Stahl, his old friend, an old comrade who had resigned from the army at that time. The iron master called him by his friend's name, by that name, and told him to get up and come with him to his house, especially because it was a Christmas Eve. The tramp, who did not tell his reality because he hoped to get some cash in the form of help, was shocked at the proposal. He flatly refused to go. He did not at once happy to see and just went along with him. He refused to go because he knew it was like walking into lion's den, because he was sure to be arrested and sent to prison. So the iron master was very disappointed because he thought his friend is not coming to his home. But from home he sent his elder daughter, Edla Williamson, to persuade his old comrade. Edla was Iron Master's elder daughter. His wife had died long since and the other children were abroad. She was an intelligent and observant person. The shabby, dirty looks and nervous actions of the man told Edla that the man could never be an army officer. He was either an offender, he must have committed some crime, or an escaped convict, or he must have escaped from the prison. So at the same time, Edla was a kind and compassionate girl. She decided to take him along and to give him a really happy Christmas because it was a Christmas time. So she thought maybe he might be an offender or a criminal convict or a convict, but let's give him a happy Christmas. So she took him along after assuring him that he would leave her house as a free man. Nobody would arrest him. Next morning, the ironmaster's valet gave the man an absolutely new look. Absolutely new look, because the ironmaster found out that this man was not his friend, because he was now in a well-trimmed and shaved and everything was that. So he at once recognized that he is not his friend, Captain Von Stable. In fact, he became very angry, because he could not even reveal that. He could not identify himself when he was telling him that you are his friend. So he became very angry that he was going to hand him over to the police as a cheat. Finding himself trapped, the trap narrated to the ironmaster his Rattrap story. On hearing about the Rattrap story, the ironmaster laughed heartily. He dropped the idea of handing him over to the police. He simply ordered him to leave his house at once. So at this moment, Edla interceded on his behalf. She told her father that she wanted to give the man a happy Christmas, and the ironmaster agreed. As long as he remained in the ironmaster's house, the tramp kept sleeping most of the time. It seemed that perhaps he wanted to catch up the year's missing hours of sleep. During evening, he was woken up for a while. Edla told him that the suit he was wearing was a Christmas present from her father's side. She told him that in future too, whenever he wished, he could come and spend the Christmas with them. He was still asleep when in the morning the ironmaster and Edla went to church. The story of the theft of 30 kroner had already become public. The ironmaster felt uneasy and rushed home. The gateman informed at the gate that the man had already left. He had left a little gift for Edla. The gift was a rat trap with a crumpled piece of paper inside. Within the folds of the paper, there were 3 10-kroner notes. On the paper it was written, "The rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in this world's rat trap if he had not been raised to captain, because in that way he got the power to clear himself. Written with friendship and with high regard, Captain Von Stable." So now you can see here he identifies himself actually as Captain Von Stable, because he was awakened. He left that he came out of that trap. He came out of that greed, that allurement, that enticement. So here Selma Lagerlof gives a very apt and logical title to this story, because the title is very suitable and justified. The metaphor of the rat trap is effectively used. The whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. All riches, joys, food and shelter are just baits. These are tempting for person, for people, for men. The moment anyone touches that bait, they fell into that grip. The rat trap closes in on him. Then everything comes to an end. Let's know what is the message of this story. In this story, the author Selma Lagerlof conveys a definite message. The story has a universal appeal. The essential goodness in human being never dies. It can be awakened through understanding, compassion, and love. Miss Edla awakens the basic goodness of the peddler. He is transformed into a noble person in the end. Let's know the theme of the rat trap. This is a short story about an old, disillusioned peddler and thief who is taken in and shown generosity by a young woman. Her kindness changes his bitter attitude about life. The theme of the story is that most human beings are prone to fall into the trap of material benefits, greed. So, but once someone takes that bait, the world closes in on him and then everything is lost. So, just know the character sketch of the peddler. We find that the peddler is struggling for his survival. He either sells rat traps, begs, or commits petty thievery, steals. His life is sad, lonely, gloominess, and monotonous. The world has never been very kind to him, and he feels happy calling it a rat trap. Earlier, he gives in to dishonesty by stealing money of the crofter who showed kindness to him, because he was always blaming the world, the rich people, that he could not even think about the poor people. But when he has got the chance, even he has stolen the money of the crofter who showed him kindness. But the compassionate behavior of Edla Williamson towards him changes his heart. The goodness in him is awakened. The peddler wins our sympathy for his way of life and how the world treats him. Despite his suffering, we find the peddler has a sense of humor and a philosophical attitude towards life. This is why he compares the world to a rat trap. So here, one thing, what was the sudden idea that dawned on the rat trap man? There are some question and answers we can specifically put in so that you can understand in a better manner. So what was the sudden idea that dawned on the rat trap? So the rat trap man was suddenly struck by the idea that whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages was nothing but a big rat trap. And such an idea struck him because he was thinking about his rat traps. The world existed for setting baits for people to catch them in rat trap of the world. It offered riches, joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, just like a rat trap offered cheese and coke. So here you can see that rat trap is a philosopher also. He is not only the rat trap, he has something inner, because inner sense he feels while making rat trap toys. He was thinking that the whole world is just like a whole world is just like a rat trap, and the man a poor rat. So all richness, greediness, they allure, they entice the human beings to get entangled in that rat trap. So the other question is that how was the peddler received by the crofter? So the peddler was received very kindly, something which I had not expected at all. He was also offered food and shelter. The crofter even played a game of meolis with him and told all his secrets. Why was the crofter so talkative and friendly with the peddler? Because the crofter's circumstances and temperament made him so talkative and friendly with the peddler. Since he had no wife or child, he was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. He was lonely, so he was very happy to see his friend. Secondly, he was quite generous with his confidences. So that is why the peddler that is why the peddler was so talkative, because most of the time he was lonely, and that is why he was very happy to see one person coming and talking to him. What made the peddler think that he had indeed fallen into a rat trap? The peddler realized that he must not walk on the public highway with the stolen money in his pocket. He went into the woods. He kept walking without coming to the end of the wood. Then he realized that he had fallen in the rat trap. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught in. And what did the peddler compare the world to, and why? The peddler compared the world to a rat trap. He looked at the world with vengeance for being unkind to him. It is a big rat trap where the riches act as baits to lure and trap people for life. So why did Iron Master speak kindly to the peddler and invite him home? The iron master walked closely up to the peddler. In uncertain reflection from the furnace, he mistook the man as his old regimental comrade, old friend, so Captain Von Stahl. He addressed the stranger as meals off, spoke very kindly, and invited him home. So, what made the peddler accept Adela Manson's invitation? Miss Adela Willie Manson looked at the peddler quite compassionately. She noticed that the man was afraid. She assured him that he would be allowed to leave just as freely as he came. She requested him to stay with him over Christmas Eve. Her friendly manner made the peddler feel confidence in her and accept her invitation. Why did peddler resort to often begging and petty thievery? The peddler was very poor. He used old wires to build a rat trap and sell it in the market. Sometimes when the business was poor, he had to resort to begging and stealing. Why did peddler decline the invitation? The peddler knew that the iron master had mistaken him for his old regimental friend. Secondly, he had stolen money, 30 kroner, from him. Going to the iron master's residence would be like entering the lion's den. So, he declined the invitation. So, how did the father's and daughter's attitude towards the peddler differ before they discover his identity? Father wants to turn out the peddler. He feels that the peddler has cheated them by not revealing his real identity. The daughter feels that the peddler should be given a chance to redeem himself, to reform himself, as he has not stolen anything and behaved like a real captain. Bring out the philosophical overtones in this story. The peddler found that the whole world, with its riches and comforts, alluring people, is a rat trap. This is a practical philosophy even today. The modern world is full of alluring things, people, places, and opportunities everywhere. Humans have an unquenched thirst for all these. They have greed, they have penchant for all those things. So instinctively, they desire to achieve them but turn out to be trapped at the end. Addictions are the best examples. We felt trapped, we felt tempted to do those things. Even we should avoid them, even knowing that it is wrong for us, even knowing that it should be avoidable for us, but we fell into that trap. So how does the metaphor of the rat trap serve to highlight the predicament of the beggar? So while thinking of his rat trap, the peddler is suddenly struck by the idea that the world is a rat trap. Riches, joys, shelter, food are all lucrative baits to trap mankind. The peddler is also caught in the rat trap by stealing the money from the crofter, and like a rat, he is unable to get out of that trap. So the next question is, what made the peddler finally change his ways? The peddler had lived a life of privation and constant rejection. Nobody welcomed him. Wherever he goes, everybody rejected him. Everybody showed him with contempt. So it had made him cynical and embittered. Self-preservation had become his sole objective, and he could not sense the difference between right and wrong. He had lost his sense of self-worth, having lived in penury with no home to call his own and not even a name to answer to. He had to resort to begging and petty thieving to survive, and life offered no pleasure at all. The sadness and the monotony of his life had convinced him of the fact that life was like a huge rat trap, and just as the cheese and pork in the traps that he made were the bait, also the riches, joys, shelter, and the food that life offered were the bait. As soon as anyone lets himself be tempted, it closed in around him, and all came to an end. He took pleasure in thinking of all the acquaintances who had been caught in this trap. However, the meeting with the ironmaster's daughter was the turning point in his life. The kindness, the concern, the sympathy,
Incoming call.
and the
Incoming
understanding
call.
that she showed
Incoming
him
call.
touched the core of
Incoming
his
call.
heart and
Incoming
transformed
call.
his way of thinking.
Incoming call.
Thank you.
Incoming call. Incoming